Hello everybody, my name is Nairi and this is Fly Little Birds, and we talk about children that have suffered childhood trauma, generally children in adoption and fostering. So today I'm going to talk about being the advocate for those children. If you have a child that you know has suffered childhood trauma, you think they have, you've got an adopted child, foster child, it's going to be handy for you to listen to this video. And I have two adopted sons myself. So being the advocate. When I was first fostering many years ago, somebody said to me, I can't remember who it was, probably a social worker, you will learn to be a really strong advocate for these children. You will learn to be outspoken and say what you need to say, and never a truer word spoken actually. So I'm going to help you to think about the ways that you can be an advocate for your children. So first of all, thinking of situations that children find themselves in the community, at school, at nursery, even sometimes at home, where they cannot speak for themselves. So they may have the words, but they may not be able to express what it is they want to say. And when you have children that may have additional needs as well, so if you've got a child that struggles with communication, struggles with anxiety, or academically is further behind, even more so, it's even more difficult for them to express what it is they need. And if I could have some money for every time someone has said to me in a new situation, they will be fine, don't worry, they will be fine, or children are very resilient. Well, in my experience, our boys have not always been fine, and sometimes they've struggled to express what exactly it is they're struggling with. It could be that they come home from school and they know something's wrong and they can't always express entirely what it is. They can't always put it into words. And sometimes you've got to really be in tune with your child to notice when things are going downhill. So not only do our children struggle with communication, they struggle to make friendships and keep them. They struggle to trust adults, so they're not necessarily going to go to another adult other than yourself to tell them what is wrong. The number of times I've said to our boys, please go and tell someone. I'll give you an example. One of my boys was followed home by a bully yesterday, ready for kind of bullying, and actually said to him, do you want to fight? And I said over and over again to my son, is there any reason for that? You know, did you kind of have a bit of an altercation at school? He said, no, this is the sort of child that he is. He follows people, he, picks on them, he bullies them, and, it's just a problem. So thankfully he found somewhere that he could stop off on the way, because my daughter lives on the way home, so he was able to kind of get out of the situation. Okay, we've been here before with these types of situations. You really need to go and tell someone. And he went quiet. And immediately I knew it was like the reticence, not only to tell someone because he didn't probably want the bully to then be escalated, but the reticence to try and communicate to a teacher how it is he's feeling and what it is exactly happened, because his communication is behind, long way behind. So yeah, it's hard for our children to trust adults because they cannot always get across to them what it is they really are thinking, they really are needing. And that's where you come in. That's where you step in as the advocate. Not forgetting you know these children better than anyone else, especially if you've adopted and you've had a child for a long time. But if you're a long-term foster carer or you've had a child for a couple of years, then you are going to know the child's needs better than anyone else. So don't let anybody else tell you what those needs are. Don't let anybody else tell you that something isn't necessary, or the child is fine, or they think the child's going to be okay if you don't think the child is okay. Of course, the caveat on this is you can't be there for everything. You can't sort every problem out. And sometimes your child needs to experience a little bit of discomfort in kind of pushing them forward to speak to other people and find their level of independence. So you can't be there for everything. But in my experience, you need to really push hard for what they need. So here are a few ways that you can do this practically. Have regular consultations with the people who matter. So in school, that might be, in our country, that would be a Senko. Somewhere else, it might be the lead safeguarding person. It might be the pastoral care person. It could be in a nursery environment that it's their key worker. Find the person that matters to be able to kind of bang on the door and have regular consultations with them, even if you don't think your child actually needs it at the moment, or they don't think the child actually needs it at the moment. It might be that the additional needs that your child has are not labelled, are not part of a strategy and not part of a documentation. So arguing for a consultation might be over and above what they would normally do for your child, because it's not written in stone that they have childhood trauma or they've got a childhood condition. But that doesn't matter. As an adopted or foster child, or a child you know has suffered trauma, you can argue the case that you need regular consultations just to keep short accounts. That's what I think anyway. Keep an open, inquiring mind with your child, because they go through dips and troughs, don't they? They go through different times when they seem all right and when then they don't seem all right. And we've had a situation very recently with our other son where actually something very significant happened, and there was kind of a little bit of evidence that things were going that way. He was a little bit restless. He seemed to be detaching himself from us, which doesn't happen very often. He's normally kind of there. You know he's there. If I have a conversation with my other son, he's there interrupting. So when he goes quiet and disappears off, you know, that's an indication that something's not quite right. And having an inquiring mind is going to help you. We call it curiosity when you're using the PACE parenting style. So check back on my channel, and there's quite a few videos on PACE parenting if you don't know what that is. But the curiosity in PACE is what it really is. Having an inquiring mind about how they're doing in any given situation, especially when they're away from you. And it might be that your child doesn't tell you right away, but they know you're on it and they know that you're thinking of them, so that if they need to come to you with anything, they can come to you pretty quickly. My next thing to say to you is, if you do believe your child has an additional need in any way and it could be documented in any way, then please try to pursue documentation. It might seem like it's a fruitless exercise at times. I know for us, when we've gone for assessments, it just seems so long-winded to get where we want to get. But if you can get assessments done where the actual thing that they have wrong with them is written down, if you can get paperwork in place, then when it comes to getting help and support, particularly funding for your child, then it's going to be a lot easier. And actually no harm done really if you have all these assessments done. In our country, you can then go for an EHCP. It may be that your child's not at that level and you're not likely to get that, but if there's a chance that they may get it, then go for it. And the other thing to consider is if there's any funding around disability, living allowance and things like that, and sort of doing the paperwork for that. Because the next point I want to say to you is, if you can get any resources or funding in place for your child and be an advocate in that way, then especially when they get older, this is what we found, that when the children are younger, a lot of their needs can be kind of met, even though it may be a little bit turbulent. But as they get older, those additional needs make it more obvious that they're not keeping up with their peers and that they're going to need more help, particularly into adulthood. So if you can get stuff written down for them that says they have certain things, then when it comes to trying to push forward for funding streams, then you're going to have a much easier task to do that. And I would just really say to you, be an advocate and looking what's out there for them in ways of community things they can do for free or actual funding coming in. And in our situation, we've been able to move forward with disability living allowance for one of our sons, and we're going to push forward for the other one, because it means that we can then look at streams of therapy for him, additional things he might need in the home, and perhaps later on this is going to be much more significant when it comes to housing and independence and things like that. So yeah, don't hold back. Try everything that you possibly can for them, because if you fail in it, you fail in it. If you don't get what you need, you don't get what you need. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's worth a try. And sometimes, honestly, we've had to be unpopular and we've had to not take no for an answer. We've had no's many, many times. You would think, wouldn't you, these children that have suffered so much would be the first in the queue for help. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I feel that you have to fight for everything. Now, obviously, schools and different organisations don't have endless pots of money, and they can't always give you what you want. And, you know, you don't have to be nasty about things. You can ask in the nicest way possible. But you might have to be really persistent, and if you feel that your child does have something but it's not being diagnosed, or you're pretty sure, you know, in your heart of hearts that more needs to be done and there's not an assessment taking place, then you may have to be very persistent and you may have to be very unpopular, because at the end of the day it's worth it if you can get what you can and be a really strong advocate for your child. I hope you found that helpful. Check out my other playlist. There is one on additional needs which I will pop up for you, so you can have a look at different childhood conditions and things like that. And I'll see you on Fly Little Birds. And I just want to thank Mary and Christine for being fantastic member supporters. Thank you.